So, Greg, you get to go after that. I'm actually struck when I was listening to that poem, how it explores this depth of what is mysterious and unfathomable and attempts through art to make it knowable. And it struck me sitting there that in some ways it's similar to what Greg Asner does through his work, which is really pushing the boundaries of how we understand phenomenon such as deforestation and biodiversity, ecological conservation. He and his team are measuring and mapping through the use of sophisticated technologies aspects and understandings of forests that we previously couldn't have done or couldn't have imagined that we could do. And what that's doing is shedding light on deep secrets about issues such as climate change. In a talk he delivered earlier today, he mentioned that climate change is not a belief system, it's actually a science. And that's important when we hear people say that they don't believe in climate change, because for somebody doing the work that he does, what it essentially expresses is a complete denial about the practice of science and the light that it can shed on the previously mysterious and unfathomable. And if we choose to let it be mysterious and unfathomable despite that, then that's our choice, not our wisdom. So I'd like to invite you to join me in welcoming Dr. Greg Asner to the stage.
Thank you all. I want to thank Vice President Gore, Teresa Heinz, the Heinz family, and the board. I want to thank Grant and Kim Odell and her team, and my fellow recipients. And I want to thank my colleagues from around the world who apparently think that what I'm doing is useful, because they wrote these letters, I heard, that were saying it was useful. So thank you, and I thank all of you for coming here. I cannot tell you, I'm still in shock. I'm still not really sure how I got here, but I think what I'll do for my few minutes is to tell you what I've done and where I'm going next, so that you can see that it's a path that doesn't end. It's just beginning in a lot of ways. I think I have a clicker here. Don't know which one to use. Thank you. I come from the perspective that humans, we, now dominate Earth's ecosystems and the atmosphere. But in that process, we have imperiled more species, other species on this planet, if you think about it, more than any other time since a meteor took out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. Ecologists like me call this the sixth extinction. Say that 3 times fast, I'll be impressed. The irony really is that this web of life, what Grant mentioned we call biodiversity, it's the web of life, also generates our own life support system. It used to be esoteric to say that, or maybe theoretical, but now we have the capability to measure it and to know that it's real. So this extinction event could be viewed as our own, and what we need to do, and what propels my team and me every day, is to figure out ways to mitigate this process and to understand whether science and technology can rise to the occasion to better manage Earth going into the future. That's a graph of the extinction process today. Now, I started in this about 25 years ago. I was assigned to this island in the Pacific, and I was told to go around and find rare and endangered species on the top of that mountain. Obviously a hard job, but what propelled me was the activity of trying to do that propelled me to try to find new technologies and new science approaches to better understand what's out there, first of all, and then to make a better effort to protect it. Now, fast forward 25 years, and today I'm developing a new plan that will revolutionize how we spend our very limited conservation resources to save more species and to manage the planet forward for the greater biodiversity. And that's really important because we have a very limited amount of conservation money out there. It's a project based on Earth mapping science and technology that I've already tested and I wouldn't say perfected, but operationalized from high-flying aircraft. But the new idea that I have takes us to Earth orbit, which is where I'll end today. Back in 1992, 25 years ago, I was told, you cannot map biodiversity. Not possible. Stick to the more standard stuff that, say, NASA has in orbit. Focus on deforestation. Try to do the mainstream type science. I wasn't happy with that. I wanted to know not only where a forest is, but what a forest contains. That's the biodiversity. Why? Because if we can do that, we can make some tough decisions on what to protect going forward. In 2005, a little bit of science, since I'm a scientist, in 2005, my colleague who's here tonight, Dr. Robin Martin, and I made a critical discovery that plants actually have fingerprints, chemical fingerprints. And we developed that science, it's called spectronomics, and we figured out that if we can understand the chemical fingerprinting that occurs in plants, then we can map them and understand the biodiversity. Once we had the plant chemistry worked out, I needed a way to fly over these canopies and to measure them. And we needed instruments to do that. So in 2005, I invented the Carnegie Airborne Observatory. Neat that I'm in Pittsburgh. I do work for the Carnegie Institution for Science, so there's a connection there as well. We flew in this rickety little airplane. It's the only thing I could afford. Engine oil leaks and all sorts of problems along the way, but we figured out how to map the diversity of trees and other species from the air. This is that Amazon rainforest that Vice President Gore and Teresa Heinz talked about. Each color is a different species. That's what we do today. We also combine these types of technologies with other technologies to figure out what the animals are doing in these ecosystems. That way we could pull together a deeper understanding of the biodiversity to make the tough decisions on what to protect and where. In 2011, I launched a new super spectrometer and a super technology on board this aircraft. Here's a view of the inside. It's a high-tech laboratory. Think carbon fiber, think high-tech materials, think supercomputing, and think lasers and photon measuring devices that help us understand what's out there as we fly over. We applied it, for example, to this area that's about 200 million acres in the Peruvian Andes to Amazon region. And we turned Google Earth maps into these colorful maps of actually what types of communities are out there in terms of tree communities. And we figured out which ones were being protected and which ones were being missed. And that's the cookie cutting that you see there on the map. We also learned how to use our new maps to engage governments and literally take the science straight to the government policy sector to help them understand where they're protecting and where they can do a better job. We've done this with coral reefs as well. I just mentioned that briefly. And last year we mapped Borneo, and this was a pivotal change for us because the government asked us to come to their country, an American organization, and map them so that they could find where to put a new 700,000 acre national park. That told me we had something much bigger to offer. So the next step in this story that we're developing is that we're going to go to Earth orbit with these technologies because one airplane is not enough. We just can't get enough done per year. So this fourth generation technology will go on to this satellite, and we're going to make biodiversity maps worldwide. Why does this matter? One, we can make tough decisions on what to protect now going forward so that we save the most biodiversity along the way in the path of human development. Second, we can use this technology and this mapping approach to understand the efficacy, the value of the different conservation actions that are ongoing today. We've got the satellite design. We've got a final slide that says it's called the Life Mission. That's where we're headed next, so stay tuned, because I believe 24 months from today, we will get a view of Earth every 2 weeks that tells us how are we doing with our biodiversity. Thank you again for the award. Thank you for having me.
Greg, is it okay if I share with the crowd the reaction that you had when I called you about the award? It's kind of too late now. I'm going to do it. So, I just thought this was so important from the standpoint of the award program and why it's important to take a moment out to celebrate people who are heroes in our midst like this. Part of what Greg shared with me when we spoke was that he actually said, I didn't know anybody was paying attention, and I've been doing this for 20 plus years, and I didn't know if I could do it for another 20 plus more at a time when there is so much hostility being directed at the scientific community. And to know that that my peers were noticing changes everything. So I'm delighted that was